Tom Barbash is going to introduce his dear friend David Mitchell, and we'll launch into our presentation. So please, Tom Barbash.
Hi, it's sort of a perfect moment to be at my home bookstore. This is like my home court, you know, if I was an athlete, and to be introducing one of my favorite people and one of my favorite all-time writers, David Mitchell. So it's great to be here, and the food was excellent. Thank you so much. It was really, really delicious. So as you know, David has, you think of sixes right now. David's written 6 novels. Cloud Atlas, which was the first book I fell in love with David's, has 6 different distinct sections. This has 6 too, so I hope this is, but he's actually got a 7th book, so maybe I can stay away from the 666. I first was asked to, or introduced to David's work because I was asked to review Cloud Atlas for the San Francisco Chronicle, and I had the experience that a lot of you had of reading the first section, having it stop in the middle and wondering what was wrong. And then moving into another book, and I thought, this is an insane publisher who sent me this, something is wrong here. But then you read through and you're introduced to not only to a new world, a different style, a different genre, a different time period, and you begin to think, I'm in the midst of something special here. And then, as I was dazzled by that book, and then went back and read his first book, Ghostwritten, was completely blown away. Again, for a first novel, I guess for me, it works as stories, it also works as novels. I just was, because I didn't know him, I was overcome with envy and a little bit of loathing. But I've gotten over that.
Yeah. He says.
Is that a really great, interesting trajectory in that really what could have been a first novel, or the traditional first novel, which is the sort of first-person coming-of-age novel, which was his 4th, Black Swan Green, and it's possibly my favorite, but although each book I decide this is my favorite. Beautiful, beautiful book. And then 1,000 Autumns of Jacob de Zoet is just, yes. So see, we have a lot of, I think we have arguments here over what the best David Mitchell book is. And so, in terms of just style, the wit, the humanity of his books, the range, the amount of influences, but really in some sort of dazzling humor, and in some ways it's almost every section. I was just looking at a random section I was talking about before, where, and this is Crispin Hershey, he says, he showers away his sticky day and flumps back onto his snowy bed. I just love that. Clad in boxers and a t-shirt with Beckett's "Fail Better" quote. which he was given in Santa Fe. I was actually with David in Santa Fe. I asked him if he'd gotten a t-shirt and he had. So. There's a quote from Crispin Hershey in it. He says, "Writing is a pathology. I'd pack it in tomorrow if I could." And we hope desperately it's not a pathology David is cured of anytime soon. I just wanted to read 2 things. I usually don't quote from reviews, but I really like a couple of things that Pico Iyer and the Times said about David's book, if you haven't read the review. "No one, clearly, has ever told Mitchell that the novel is dead. He writes with a furious intensity and slapped-awake vitality, with a delight in language and all the rabbit holes of experience that no new media could begin to rival. It's no coincidence that it was the makers of The Matrix who brought his previous epic Cloud Atlas to the screen in 2012. I love that movie, by the way, and I think you should see it. Mitchell sees the everyday with the startled freshness of a creature newly arrived from Epsilon Eridani, but amid all the glorious physical description, quote, "The wood sounds like waves, with rooks tumbling about like black socks in a dryer. There's always a trace of something metaphysical that lifts the roof off the contemporary novel and suggests there are many more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our philosophies. You may not believe in telepathy, second sight, or reincarnation, but if you enter Mitchell's universe, you can't not believe in them either." And then he said, "Not many novelists could take on plausible Aboriginal speech, imagine a world after climate change has ravaged it, and wonder whether whales suffer from unrequited love. Any rate, you're in for a treat, and we're just so happy that David's here. I am. I know that. Bye. Not bye. He's sick, so he's avoiding hugs in case people want them. So.
I'm only a bit sick. Maybe it's to add for Angela and Jennifer, who are just sat about 18 inches away from us during dinner. But really, thank you very much for being here. I wasn't going to mention this, but my host suggested I did. This is actually the very, very first. Kind of right here on the stage was the scene of my first ever book event in 1999. I was living in Japan, and so they flew me over, and the West Coast was where I started, rather than where I ended up. And it's a lovely, these circles in life are just wonderful when they come all the way around and meet back where they started again. They're more like spirals, and they hopefully going up and not down. So yes, I should just thank you for those very, as usual, Tom, two kind words, and you can only really handle it by imagining they're talking about somebody else. So whoever that bloke is, he's very happy that someone is saying something. The idea was that I would entertain you with witty and urbane, casual after-dinner chat. Forget it. Just apologise. I'm slightly. I only got about 3 hours sleep last night, and I am fried. I don't even know what day of the week it is. So. I'm going to fall back on a couple of readings, and then, if it's okay, if you'll just indulge me for that, then I'd really enjoy to do some Q&A with you. The first reading is in Tom's honour, because he likes a section in the book. I'm an obstreperous, monstrously vain English novelist of fading powers. And I'm at the Hay on Wye Literary Festival in the year, I think it's this year, no, it's 2015. I was angling for an invitation, but they didn't take me in. So if you've ever been to one of these places, one of these events, then I hope you'll recognise the viewings. This is just a short section. And then I'll do a longer one from earlier in the book. The Britphone Pavilion was designed by an eminent architect I've never heard of, and quotes Hadrian's Wall, the Tower of London, a Tudor manor, post-war public housing, Wembley Stadium, and a Docklands skyscraper. What a sicked-up fry-up it is. A holographic net of the BritNet logo flutters from its pinnacle, and you ingress through a double-sized replica of 10 Downing Street's famous Black Door. The security men are dressed as beefeaters, and one asked for my VIP lanyard. I check my jacket, my trousers, my jacket again. Oh, sod a dog, I put it down somewhere. Look, you know who I am, I'm Crispin Hershey. I'm sorry, sir, says the beefeater. No ID, no entry. Check on your little list. Crispin Hershey, the writer. The beefeater shakes his head. I got my orders. Oh, but I did a sodding event here only an hour ago. The second beefeater comes over, eyes ashine with fan glow. You never? Are you really? Him? Oh my God, you are! Yes, I am. First. Thank you. The worthy beefeater walks me through the small lobby where lesser mortals are patted down and have their bags checked. I'm ever so sorry about that, sir. The Afghan president's here tonight, so we're on amber alert. My colleague back there is not au fait with contemporary fiction, and to be fair, you do look a lot older on your author photos. I double-checked this actually rather pleasing sentence. Older on my author photos. Oh, do I? Yeah. If I weren't such a fan, sir, I don't think I'd have recognised you. We enter the pavilion proper, where hundreds are mingling, but the worthy beefeater has a favour to beg. Look, sir, look, I shouldn't ask, but he produces a book from inside his ridiculous uniform. Your new book's like the best thing you've ever written. I went to bed with it and read right through to dawn. My fiance's mother's a huge fan too, and well, for 3 marital brownie points. Would you mind? I produce my fountain pen. The beefeater hands me his book, already turned to the title page. Only when Nib touches paper do I notice I am signing a novel called Best Kept Secret by Jeffrey Archer. I look up at the beefeater to see if he's taking the piss, but no. Would you like to bridie on your 60th birthday from Lord Archer? A famous columnist from the Times is standing about 3 feet away. Dedication written, I tell the bouncer, so glad you enjoyed it. That's also for every media escort in the country. Whoever had the pleasure of driving Lord Archer. Which makes driving Miss Daisy apparently look like a walk in the park. Don't tweet that, for God's sake. So, this is the main course. This is a reading a little bit earlier in the book. It's now 2004. Please imagine I'm British at least, but I'm a war reporter back from covering the Battle of Fallujah in Iraq. We're in Brighton on the south coast of England, it's very pleasant. There's a family wedding. My partner's sister is getting married. My female partner, he's kind of straight, but he didn't assume that he wasn't, but now I'm telling you. We have a daughter called Aoife. My partner's Holly, who's the main protagonist throughout the book. So in this section we're going to see Holly from Ed's point of view. They've been together a while now, and the honeymoon period is, as honeymoon periods tend to, it's over. That's what I call honeymoon periods, as opposed to life. I don't know if I'm going with this either. It's my leg! Our 6-year-old Aoife needed an afternoon nap because she was the bridesmaid, and I don't really know yet, but I'm kind of a war junkie, so I've been keeping an eye on the TV to see how the war is going. And we both nodded off together, and then I hear this. Ed? Ed! I was dreaming Holly woke me up in a hotel room, her eyes as panicky as a horse's when it knows it's going to die. It sounds like Holly's saying, "Where's Aoife?" But she can't be because Aoife's asleep, she's right here next to me. Gravity's wrong, my limbs are hollow, and I try to say, "What's the matter?" Holly's like someone doing a bad impression of Holly. Ed, where's Aoife? Well, she's right here. I lift the blanket. But there's only the Arctic fox. It's obviously a stuffed toy, not a real Arctic fox. Otherwise, zoological kind of. 20,000 volts fry me into hyper alertness, but there's no need to panic. She's in the bathroom. I just looked, Ed. Where is she? Aoife? Come out, Aoife, this isn't funny. I stand up and slip on Animal Rescue Ranger Annual 2004 and fall into the floor. I check the wardrobes in the 2-inch gap under the bed and the bathroom and the shower cubicle. My bones turn to warm sticky tack. She's missing. Well, she was here. We were just having a nap just a minute ago. I look at the time on the TV frame. 16:20. Shit. I lurch over to the windows as if I'll see her waving up at me from the teeming weekend crowds on the promenade below. My toe bangs something and the pain drills a hole. Aoife was asking where Dave and Kath's room is and why couldn't she visit Dwight Silverwind, the fortune teller, at the end of the pier where we were this morning. I looked for Aoife's sandals, they're gone. honest speaking, but it's like I've forgotten my English. It's just vowels and consonants, and then she's stopped and is waiting for me to respond. Either she went to find you, or to your mum and dad's room, or she's gone to the fortune teller down the pier. Look, you go to your parents' room and tell reception not to let a 6-year-old girl in a Christ, what was she wearing? A zebra t-shirt, I think, out of the building on her own. I'll go and check the pier. I ram my feet into my shoes, and as I leave the room, Holly calls out, "Have you got your phone?" And I check and call back, "Yeah," and hurry into the corridor down to the lifts where 2 old ladies from Agatha Christie in flowery frocks are waiting by an expedition of prehistoric size in a vast bronze pot, and I punch the down button, but no lift comes, and I punch it, and I realise I've been mumbling shit, 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 shit. And the ladies are glaring, and finally it arrives, opens, and Darth Vader points upward with his lightsaber and says, "Are you going up?" in a Yorkshire accent, and I'm walloped in the guts by an image of Aoife up on the roof, so I get in too. Miss Marple says, "Look, we're going down, but I must say your costume's splendid." No, what am I thinking? Any door onto the roof would be locked. That's just stupid. Health and safety. And anyway, Aoife's on the pier. Focus. I get out, just as the doors close, and bark my shin, making the doors open again, and Darth Vader says, "Make your mind up, pal." I apologise if there's any Yorkshire people in the accent, please don't lynch me. I know I'm a southern, I'm not really mocking your accent all the way of life, just as any accent I can do because my dad's from Leeds. To the stairs then. I follow the arrow marked stairs to another arrow marked stairs, and follow that arrow to another and another and another, and the carpet muffles my footfalls. Up ahead, the 2 old ladies are getting to the lift, so I shout, "Hold that lift for me!" and spring like Michael Jordan, but trip over my undone laces and slide 10 yards, friction burning my Adam's apple, and the doors rumble shut, and maybe the Agatha Christies could have held the lift for me, and maybe they couldn't, but they didn't, bitches. And I hammered the button with my thumb, but the bastard thing's gone, and my trusting innocent daughter's getting close to that man on the pier with his own lockable booth, who probably doesn't even bother with underpants underneath his normal robes. I do up my laces and step back, and the lift stops at 7, and about a decade later it moves down to 6. It stays there another decade, and the scream's welling up, and then I notice the stairs. They're right there through a glass door behind the aspidistra. For Christ's sake. Down the echoey stairwell I pound like an action hero with dodgy knees, but what sort of action hero nods off while he's minding his only daughter, his only lovely, funny, perfect, fragile daughter? Down I run, floor after floor, on my journey to the centre of the earth, the smell of paint getting fumier, and pass a decorator on step ladders. "Bloody hell, take it easy, mate, or you'll slip and dash your brains out." He's also from Yorkshire, probably the brother of the elf. I reach a door marked emergency exit with a grimy little window and a view of an underground loading bay, so it's the back of the building when I need the front, and the door's locked anyway, and why didn't I just wait for the bloody lift? I'd hurtle along a service passage, skidding past a sign marked Level 0 Access, and what's this prodding certainty that I'm in a labyrinth, not only of turnings and doors, but decisions and priorities, and I've been in it not just a minute or two, but ages, years, and that I took some bad turns many years ago. I can't get back to them, and I slam against a door marked Access and turn the handle and pull, but it doesn't open. That's because you're supposed to push. So I push, and what? Dramatic pause disguised as certainty. An exhibition space opening up deeper and wider and higher, even as I marvel that the Maritime Hotel could possibly contain this vastness, extending surely under the foundations of the neighbouring buildings, underneath the promenade, probably under the English Channel. Thousands are perusing the rows and avenues of booths and stalls, and the noise is oceanic. Some are dressed in normal clothes, but a majority are costumed. Supermen, Batmen, Watchmen, Dr. Spocks, Doctor Who's, Dr. Evils, a trio of C-3POs, a pair of Klingons, a lizardy Silurian. If you get the last reference, you've watched too much Doctor Who. A file of female Chinese Harry Potters, a stubbly Catwoman adjusting his bra strap, and a race of apes from the planet of, a posse of Agent Smiths from the Matrix, a walking TARDIS, and a blasted Schwarzenegger with bits of T-800 endoskeleton showing through. Heavens for Wikipedia. Banter, laughter, earnest discussion. What if Aoife fell into this reservoir of weirdos, geeks and fantasists? How would she ever get out? How would I get out? Through the big doors on the far side, of course, under a banner, Brighton PlanetCon 2004. So I hurry through the slow flow of browsers, of manga, of tribbles, of t-shirts, bragging, Trek is doing up your turbo shaft. Self-assembly USS Enterprises, metal die-cast Battlestar Galacticas. I passed a Dalek blasting out the lines. Do you know what a Dalek is, most of you?
Yeah.
No. Blasting out the lines, golden lads and girls all must, as chimney sweepers come to dust. And if that's not your money's worth, I don't know what is. I dodged past an invisible man. Swerved behind among the merciless, squeezed between some Urukai, and now I've lost a way out. I've lost Aoife, I've lost my north, south, east and west. So I ask Yoda, which way's the way? And he answers, it's next to the box, pal. And points. At last I'm in the lobby, and I come between a cub reporter and Judge Dredd, and out I plunge. Into the ready salted afternoon, froggering between the traffic to the promenade. Horns beat, but today I am exempt to traffic rules. The warm weather's brought out a hellish Where's Waldo of seaside humanity, of families who haven't lost their 6-year-old girl through carelessness, through neglect, and I'd swap my soul for the chance to go back to my room an hour ago, and I'd handle Aoife better, and I'd say, look, maybe I was a bit grumpy earlier, love, I'm sorry, let's go and see Mr. Silverman together, shall we? And if only I could have Aoife back, I'd give the mystical old bastard my ATM card and wipe his arse for a year. Or if I could jump forward an hour in time, after Aoife's turned up safe and sound, the first thing I'd do is to call my boss, Olive's son, at the paper, and I'd say, I'm sorry, Olive, send Harry to interview Dufresne, send Jen, I've got to stay with my family today. God, let Aoife run through the crowd and jump into my arms, let no stranger be bundling her into a van. Don't go there, just don't go there. A jostling river of people flows on and off the pier. I jog upstream and then slow down. Must miss her if she's walking past this way looking for Daddy. Keep sweeping the faces side to side. Scan the faces for Aoife's. Don't think about the headlines reading Daughter of War Reporter disappears, or all the tearful TV appeals, or the solicitor's statements on behalf of the Sykeses. God, the Sykeses who lived this nightmare once before. My phone trills. Please God, end this now. It's Holly, it's tough as boots Holly, and I'm praying, please God, let us be good news. And I say, what's the news? Mum and Dad haven't seen her, no, how about you? I'm still walking down the pier. I told the hotel manager, they've made an announcement on the PA and Brendan's watching reception. They say the police won't send anyone for a while, but Ruth's onto them. And I'll call you as soon as I'm at the fortune tellers. Okay, end call, that's it. I'm nearly at the amusement arcade. Look! A little black-haired girl in a zebra t-shirt and green leggings slips inside the propped open doors. Oh Christ, that's her, it's gotta be her. And a hand grenade of hope just goes off in my guts and I shout, Aoife! People turn around to spot the madman, but not Aoife. I dodge between sunburned forearms and ice creams and slush puppies, and the dog interior scrambles my senses. Aoife! The chainsaw roars of Formula racing cars and of 22nd century laser blasters and the rubble thunder of bombed up digital buildings, and there she is, Aoife. Thank you, God, thank you. She's gazing up at an older girl with a cut-off top and bangles on a Dance Revolution game floor, and I lurch over, kneel at her side. Aoife, sweetheart, you mustn't wander off like this. Me and Mum have had a heart attack. Come on. I put my hand on her arm. Aoife, let's go back now. But Aoife turns to me and she's got the wrong eyes, the wrong nose and the wrong face, and I'm pulled away by a powerful hand by a well-built man in his 50s wearing a nasty acrylic t-shirt. And what the feck do you think you're doing with my daughter? It just got worse. It actually really just got worse. I thought she was my daughter. I lost her. The guy's considering dismembering me. Well, this isn't her, is it? And you want to watch it, mate. People get the wrong idea, or even the right idea. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I hurtle out into the sunshine outside the arcade like Jonah puked out of a smoky, French fries greasy whale. It's actually chip greasy, but a bit of translation. This is your punishment for what happened in Iraq, says this voice. This is your punishment for Aziz and Nasser. Dwight Silverwind's my only hope now. 60 seconds away. Oh, he wouldn't dare interfere with her here. It's too public. Maybe he's okay. Maybe he'll just tell her to wait till Danny comes along. Maybe Aoife will just be sitting there. Oh, thank you very much. Like it's all a funny joke. Does Aoife actually know Holly's mobile number? I don't even know that. Past a burger stand, past a netted basketball booth, past a giant teddy bear with a guy inside sweating buckets, past a little girl gazing down at the lullabying sea far below. White Silverwinds jerks closer and closer. Brighton Pier sways, my ribs curling. A woman's knitting outside the centre, and a sign saying "Reading in progress" hangs on the door. I burst into the dark little cavern with one table, 2 upholstered chairs, 3 candles, incense, a tarot card spread out, and a surprised White Silverwind, and a customer in a shell suit, and no Aoife. No Aoife. Do you mind if we finish? Says the customer. I ask Silverwind, has my daughter been in here? The woman stands up. You can't just barge in here like this. I'm having a reading. Silverwind's frowning. I remember you. You're Aoife's father. She's run off. She's from the hotel, from the Maritime. I thought she... They look at me like I'm a total nutter. I need to vomit. I thought she might have come here. I'm so sorry, Mr. Brubeck, White Silverwind saying, as if she's passed away. But we've seen neither hide nor hair of her. I'm afraid if you want to know what happens next. All good bookstores. Oh, we're here now. I forgot. Thank you very much. You're too kind. I would be really grateful actually for any questions because it means I don't have. Oh, thank you. From the bottom of the bacteriological love nest that I am. Thank you. So the lady here and then the gentleman down here first. Hi.
We did meet 8 years ago when you were at Cody's. Black Swan.
Right.
And you at that time had just finished reading, we discussed Ridley Walker.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you, because it's been 35 years since I read that book, I was wondering, it did seem to resonate a little bit in certain sections of this. I have read Bone Clock and loved it. It was like reading 6 novels, entirely different with unifying themes.
Thank you.
There were some themes, particularly during the dystopian events, that reminded me somewhat of Ridley Walker. I was wondering if you had channeled that.
Sure. Thank you for your question. Just about influences in the semi-dystopian, actually the 3/4 dystopian, the 92% dystopian. There's a little bit of hope. More than in Ridley Walker, probably. So, Ridley Walker is a book by Russell Hoban, written I think in the early 70s, about England after the nuclear war, and civilization has been blown to pieces and language has decayed. The remarkable thing about the book is it's the language it's written in. It takes about 10 pages to really get to learn how to speak it. It's effortless and wonderful, but it's probably a more hardcore dialect than Twain's Mississippi dialect in Huckleberry Finn, which, if it's hard for you, just throw in that if you're English. So that certainly gave me a sort of a green light for the section in Cloud Atlas set in the 25th century in Hawaii. That proves you can get away with smashing English to bits and reassembling it and mixing in some slang and mixing in some neologisms and Cloud Atlas most certainly. For this one, I hadn't really thought of that. I mean, it's still there. I mean, it's been 8 years since I read it. It's in the soup. in which I kind of went fishing, I suppose. I suppose you can't really have read that book and then it not influence you when you're thinking about what life might look like when our power grid, our fossil fuel driven power grid upon which we depend so much for all aspects of our life, from feeding ourselves to cooling ourselves to heating ourselves to moving ourselves to clothing ourselves, in terms of the industry, to everything really. What the world will look like when that's no longer here. Ridley Walker is an answer to that question. I hadn't thought about it. It probably has fed in. If you're curious about influences for the sixth part, then more consciously than Ridley Walker was actually there's really beautiful books written by a wheelchair-bound English classicist in the 1950s called Rosemary Sutcliffe, called The Eagle of the Ninth, and that trilogy. They probably have a copy here. I read it to my daughter, like a bedtime story. She's got quite precocious tastes. The second and the third. The third one's even better. They're just superbly realised, very fresh. He's a great stylist, but doesn't know it, which is a bit like when you're dating someone who's really good looking and they don't know it. That's even better, isn't it? There's none of this admire me if I'm a fabulous metaphor. She's amazing, and there's sort of, the last book is about when the Romans finally leave Britain, the province of Britain. They abandon it because the centre is imploding, so the last legion goes, and there's a fabulous scene. Just, this is the last boat, we're the last Romans, we know we are, we're leaving Britain, and we're not coming back. And what are they leaving? What's left behind? What's going to come rushing and snarling and fighting into that power vacuum? That was a kind of a real great sense of darkness falling on civilization. Rosemary Sutcliffe was influenced by the war. I mean, she was writing this as German bombs were falling down around her. It's fabulous. So that was sort of, it was probably there's more of Rosemary Sutcliffe in my endarkenment than there is Ridley Walker. That's going to be an 8-minute answer for a very short question. I will speed up. Gentleman here, thanks for your question.
You probably didn't intend to become the leader of a revolution, but there's one going on ever since Ghostwritten. I think in literature, between what had become a kind of a suffocating emphasis on only serious realism that deals with the human condition is worthy, and all those other things like science fiction and ghost stories and so on are just, things for kids. And I think that has really turned around, and I wonder if you have any thoughts about that. And I believe that Ghostwritten was a really early vanguard of this movement, which has now been taken over by people like you continue, but Jennifer Egan and all kinds of people who are taken seriously as writers, who tell stories.
Well, sir, I would rather hear that than read the book out. Thank you. I have no idea how influential I am. I'm still quite freaked that my crowds are a little bit larger than they were 14 years ago when I was first here, to be honest. It just isn't good for you to think about. It's too much like, I leave worrying about my place in the pantheon for Crispin Hershey. That's his business. How important am I? Who's reading me? This is not good for you, so I don't kind of go there. I don't know how influential I am. I'm somewhat unnerved by the idea, but if I am, that unnerves me.
Well, pardon me for bringing that up then, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about the difference between the way stories are told now.
Sure.
And stories are now valued, plotty things with all kinds of genre elements in them. And they weren't 20 years ago.
I think you're right. I do. It's both an entirely rational question to be asking, but it also shows what a sterile cul-de-sac of a state of affairs things were if it's even a rational question, which it is. What? Novelists not liking plot? Are you mad? What were they thinking? What's wrong with plot? This is what we do. This is. Excuse me while I blow my nose. I just did that for sympathy. I'm not so bad with it. Well, what a novel's made of? They're made of 5 things, in my opinion. They're made of structure, obviously, them hanging together. Don't write this down, you're like a guru. They're also made of style and ideas, which are arresting forces. They cause you to stop and think, wow, that's a killer sentence, nice one. Or the idea, I haven't thought of that before. That's quite an interesting way of looking at things. And then 4 and 5 are plot and character, that are propulsive forces. They're the things that make you not notice the page numbers going by. And you need all 5 of them, and they're in different amounts depending on the writer. Thomas Mann, great ideas man. Borges couldn't write a character to save his life, and nor did he write a character. His ideas are the characters in a sense. On the other hand, airport novels would be, of course, very, very heavy on the plot. Won't name names, but you know what I mean. Big gold embossed letters taking up half of the front chapter. Not knocking them, a lot of pleasure. They give a lot of pleasure to a lot of people, but books that are exclusively plot, isn't it funny? That's rather dull. You need all 5, and you need to think about the proportion. You don't need too much in the way of themes or ideas, or it turns into essays and non-fiction. But you do need some, like diet needs vitamin C, otherwise your book dies of scurvy, and that's not a good sign. I would probably agree, I do, that novels now, the plot proportion and just the joy in plot and the lack of embarrassment about plot kind of has been swelling up in the last decade, perhaps a decade and a half. I've got no idea if I'm influential at all in that respect. I'd certainly rather not think that I am. But we do something very ancient. The novel's old, 300 years old, but it's not as old as the campfire yarn. It's not as old as our ancestors huddled round a fire in this part of the world, in all parts of the world, and just this happened and looked on people's faces. What happened next? What happened next? A novelist is a modern purveyor of that, and for me, the simple principle is you write someone that the reader or the receiver of the story can root for. It may be Beowulf, it may be the Wife of Bath, or it may be Arya Stark in the Game of Thrones. And then you threaten them with menace. The character plot, it's that dance. The 3 other elements are needed, but what an odd thing that we went through a patch where plot was somehow for children. What an odd time that was. I don't miss it. Do you want from the gentleman here?
This is a bit of a follow-up question to the first question.
Sure.
But for many of us, your command of language, plot, characters, concepts, ideas is unparalleled.
Thank you.
And
it's parallel. But
yeah, parallel universe. But I'm interested in the way you created the language in the 25th century, tribal land in Hawaii. If there was any techniques or background you can give us, would be fascinating, because we actually use the true as a phrase in our family. We love it,
Yeah, it's the truth.
Oh wow.
If something's really true, we could put the second true in.
Okay. Truth is like that, isn't it? It's a spectrum proposition. It's really easy actually. You write yourself a little dictionary and you write yourself grammar It only took about a page in my notebook, and you stick to it. The etymology of Zachary speak is drawn from the mistakes that my Japanese students who I was teaching at the time would commonly make. That's one principle. I scrunch together modal verbs and their negatives and the stem verbs. So instead of would not have swum becomes wouldn't have swum. There's a tendency to this in language anyway.
Yeah.
There's some Hawaiian slang there that I got from the glossary in the back of the Lonely Planet Guide to Hawaii, which dates me. They're almost going out of business now. It's all a TripAdvisor these days. It should really have been the TripAdvisor of Crispin Hershey, and not Crispin Hershey's Lonely Planet. But Lonely Planet is such an evocative phrase, isn't it? What a killer idea for a guidebook that was, isn't it? Lonely Planet, it's poetry. So I couldn't resist. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Then you stick to it. It's easier, it's much easier than reproducing vanished dialect from the past that I had to try to do with Thousand Autumns to Jacob Zoom in the end of the 18th century.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Good luck. Ooh,
One more, David.
One more. I'm really honoured. There's a lady right at the back with quite incredible hair. So just because I haven't asked anyone from the back, it's not the hair. I'm not being normal hairist. It's just because I haven't asked anyone from the Twilight Zone. So hi.
About the structure.
The structure.
In your books and film class in particular.
Yeah.
So there are these mini novels, you know, each one is a story that you want to stay with until the end of time and lock yourself in your room and not talking.
Thank you.
But I was wondering how that process goes for you of interlocking them and when you decide what the process is that it's time to break this someone else's story. And if you write, if the novels happen, you write the entire arc of the story of each of these stories first, or not.
Okay. So a very vitally question, if I may say so, and as a narrative nerd myself, I recognise a fellow narrative nerd. Vitally question about structure and with a cunning little sting in the tail question about do I write them in the same order that they appear in the book? Yeah. Structure. Generally it kind of evolves as you begin to see what it is you have on your hands. You think about what's the best way of getting all that I want to get in. That's a structure. It's not always clear at first. The exception in my being Cloud Atlas. I'm English, you can't say that word without needing to play it down a bit to show that you don't think you have an right this. I have a problem with French words, we really do. It goes back to the European Song Contest and we always vote against each other. Well, just about 800 years of history as well. So Cloud Atlas was the one exception. I had the structure there before I wrote a thing. I just wanted to see if it would work or not in my youthful, impetuous way. With the others, you have to go wrong once before you get the right structure, I find. And that first act of going wrong, where you feel this thing sliding out of your control and it's turning into a dog's dinner and a pig's breakfast and a moose's lunch, and you don't want it to, and you fight against it, and you think, no, if we just make this character better, if we make the sentence more beautiful, it'll all be okay, but no, it's not. You got the wrong structure. But you have to go wrong to see why it's wrong, and from knowing why it's wrong, how you can then get it right. So aspiring writers in the audience, that's just your first 6 months of when you go looking for what it is you've got. And don't worry if it goes horribly wrong. It should. So that's how structure evolves. And the last question, yes, I write them in the order you get them in the books, both Cloud Atlas and Bone Clocks. They're chronologically arranged to make sense to go from the past into the future. I'm actually a novella writer. I recently discovered I'm a fraudulent novelist. I'm going to get arrested by the lit police any day soon. Bursting into an event and take me off having impersonated being a novelist all these years. I write novellas, that 80 page to 130, even 40 kind of page form. It's a nice sort of Wright brothers at the Kitty Hawk kind of like take off. I can't really do short stories like my friend Tom here, who's just a master of the form. I can't get them right. There's some form of at an event Tom did in London, he said something I remembered, which is, unless a short story is really good, it's basically pretty crap. I mean, but how to get them good is it's counterintuitive. It mystifies me in a way that short stories are considered a beginner's form that you study on kind of your first semester creative writing classes. No, they're closer to poetry, they're closer to the divine, they're closer to the wellspring. I think novels are much more amateur, they're much baggier, they embrace inexactitude and a certain level of incoherence even. They are those, how would you call them, are those baggy trousers with lots of pockets and cargo pants. That just makes me think of wooden crates being kind of around your torso. So novels are cargo pants. Short stories are those lycra, the budgie smuggling, torso contour vacuum packed shorts that cyclists wear. To work, they must be wrinkle-less. So for me, actually, the novels are much more forgiving, redemption-offering form. I think I answered the question you didn't ask, but I enjoyed answering it.
Tom has one last.
I wanted to mention to everybody, David's amazing book that he wrote with his wife, where he did a translation of a memoir. The reason I jumped, and I was wondering if you could just say a word about that.
We have an 8-year-old with autism in the house. And my wife was looking for useful books because when our son was about 2 or 3, that's as bad as it gets. Autism books we found were either by experts, and you get to be a little bit suspicious of experts pretty quickly if you're an autism insider, if you're any kind of a health insider, I think. You both need the experts, but very often what they have to tell you is only tangentially helpful. Or books were written by high-functioning Asperger's, kind of the rock stars of the autism world, which I don't mean that disparagingly at all, but Temple Grandin's book is not helpful if you've got a 3-year-old headbanging the kitchen floor, you don't know why. Whereas my wife found this book on Amazon Japan, my wife's in Japan, and it's called The Reason I Jump, written by a really autistic guy, or as he was then a boy, which is kind of the point. He was much closer to our son's age than most books out there, all of the books out there really. And he can't talk. He's sort of, he's 22 now, and he can do a lot more than he could back then, but it's not high-functioning Asperger's. It's pretty hardcore autism. But he's got this sort of lucky genetic card. He can type, and he became very eloquent, or has become very eloquent when pointing to squares on a cardboard keyboard. and sounding out the letter that he's pointing to, and then that's transcribed by someone next to him. And he just wrote a book that we found to be hugely revealing and hugely informative and really helpful to us. And so we started to translate it in a kind of a samizdat fashion, just for people who were working with our son. But then my agent and publisher got to hear about it and wanted a look, and I was a bit, come on, it's like just a book written 8 years ago by some boy in Japan with autism no one's ever heard of. But they liked it, and it's now in 30 languages, which makes him the second most widely translated artist on the planet. Of course, I'm not hugely proud of the book, but because it's not my book, but it's more important than anything else I've written put together. And if you are touched by autism, or someone in your family or a friend is touched by autism, I really recommend it. And if you don't have the money for it, then let me know and I'll mail you a copy, really, because it's, you can't change autism. It's not a disease, so there is no cure. But and cures are still, well, cures in inverted commas, really useful palliative treatments are still over the horizon. We need 1 or 2 medical Einsteins to teach us more about the brain. I think it's so interlinked with autism. But while we can't change autism, we can change ignorance about autism. And people, by and large, have pretty good hearts, and they want to know, how to respond if some little guy walks over and takes a chip off your plate and walks off, and you think something's going on there. Like, what should you do? And I love the idea that this book is just quietly finding its way in the world and making this noise as it does it. It goes, and hopefully, person by person, dispelling some of the myths and some of the ignorance about autism, and making a world full of hairdressers and people who work in shoe shops and bus drivers and teachers and neighbours who understand autism a heck of a lot better than they used to, and that people who have autism and who have to live with it are not victims, they're not unfortunate lottery ticket losers, they're actually heroes. Because if we were somehow, well, like someone in my book, transported into an autistically wired head, we would be in straitjackets and padded cells by 5:30 this afternoon. But people with autism actually live with it. They're amazing. So we should think of them as heroes. A bit like I feel much better. Thank you. I would just say for the lineup, however, I'm still something of a typhoid Mary, so don't shake my hand. Just a virtual handshake. That, if you know what's good for you, I'd just leave it with.
Thank you, David.